I've decided to do for you today is refining of some deadwood. We've done a lot of block carving for you in the past, and I've always said that you just take that leaf, put it outside and let it weather. That you do, and this tree is a perfect example of that. This is pomegranate. This is collected in Sicily, and it's had several years in a pot just sitting around doing basically nothing. There's a couple of big chainsaw cuts here, one of which is much older than the other, and all this deadwood here is all old, it's dried, and it's nicely seasoned. We've just got one small live vein here that splits into three. That sort of fuels the whole top growth of the tree. Now, the important thing to know when refining deadwood is to have an understanding of how deadwood in its natural environment will decay, because the lower part is usually in the shade and it's damp from the soil, and so we tend to get rot in the lower areas, where in the upper areas oxidization and the heat of the sun, the constant sort of wetting and drying and expansion and contraction tends to produce a much more sort of harsh looking deadwood. Now, the techniques I'm going to show you for this are exactly the same as the techniques we use for block carving. It's just that the tools are going to be a lot smaller. In the context of this particular tree, we've got a little bit of work to do because we've got this big heavy bulk over here, but we want to make something nice and slim and elegant from this tree. So I'm going to be walking you through the stages to refine this deadwood. Because this deadwood is nice and old, because it's nice and dry, it's going to take a beautiful cut. Now, when it comes to refining deadwood, there are no real secret techniques, there are no clever things that you can use to shorten the process. Basically, it takes time and effort and imagination to produce very interesting deadwood. We're looking for depth, we're looking for shadow, we're looking for changes of movement, changes of texture, and using a variety of tools. We start off with generally larger tools where we're block carving, and then we go to smaller and smaller and smaller tools. The reason I tend not to use hand tools is because, unlike a wood carver who has a piece that's locked into a vise, we have a live plant in soil. I could carve this by hand, but by the time I finish going through it with gouges and with mallets and chisels, this would all be loose in the soil. We're going to damage the roots, and we're going to cause this tree a lot of stress and a lot of grief, and we stand every chance of losing it. So what I'm going to be doing with this tree is using power tools, because they work on the tree with a very light touch, so they're not going to shake the tree loose in the soil. When we're finished, this is just going to be as tight as it is now. First thing I've got to do with this is figure out what I'm going to keep. We've got this very nice old part here, some interesting kind of veins on here which I think we'll try and work with. Also, there's a nice solid part up here, and there's nice old live vein coming over the top. We've got this big lump here which needs to go, and also this big lump here. I've now finished doing the block carving on this tree, and all of this work has been done using the large shaft 1/4 inch tools. It's important to get the basic shape right before you move on to detail work, because otherwise it doesn't matter how good you are at texturing and graining, it's not going to look right if the underlying shape is not right. So now I'm going to start to move on to smaller tools like this. This is a flexible shaft on a small power tool, and here I've got a little cutter which cuts forwards and sideways. this little guy here. This is a standard flat rotary wire brush, but what's happened with this is it's been soaked in epoxy resin and then compressed. That makes a very narrow wheel with a very nice cutting edge that is very good for this detailing work. So what I'm going to do is just use this to blend this all together. The way that we do this work is to always run the brush in line with the grain, and rather than making long lines, we just use a very small sort of stroking motion where we're just touching the wood, and that starts to blend all these different areas together. So I'm hardly using any pressure on this at all, and that allows us to just go in and run all these nice areas of texture together. Now the brush has done its work, I need to clean out some of these little tiny indentations and areas of some dead bark and some softwood, and for that I'm going to use this pinnacle. This is a tiny little cutting bit with a tip just about like a needle, and that's going to get right into there and help me to clean some of those holes out. Now finished with the detailed carving on here, and as you can see we've got some nice grain and texture. We've got a lot of fuzz that's left on there by the power tools, so in order to finish that we just go over, give this a little burn with a gas torch, and you can see the little embers that are glowing there. That's just burning the fuzz away. Keep it moving and be careful of the live areas of the tree. We're not looking to burn this extensively, we've just taken the sharp tool marks that are left behind, and this softens them, and it helps to blend in what we've carved with what was already naturally there. Once that's done, we just take a steel bristle brush and brush with the grain. As you can see, there's quite a bit of dust, quite a bit of material coming out of that, and that really does soften that and helps to make that look much more natural, because the fire basically oxidizes the wood, which is what would happen over a extended period of time. Having gone over with the whole tree with the metal brush, we then use a stiff nylon brush. The circular motion helps to clean all the dust and just give the wood a little burnish, ready for what we're going to do next, which is to preserve this wood and give it a little bit of colour. So you can see that brings it up with a nice soft weathered looking finish. The final step is to actually preserve this dead wood and get some colour into it, and for that I'm going to use dilute lime sulphur, which is about 50-50 water and lime sulphur. Because this is a deciduous tree, I obviously don't want it pure white the way that perhaps we would have dead wood on a conifer, but for this first step of preserving this wood, I like to use lime sulphur, because to get a little bit of sulphur into this wood really helps to control any fungal problems. And the way to apply lime sulphur to wood for the first time is to give it a wet, like I've just done. Just give it a spray, and then slowly we just work this lime sulphur into the wood. It takes some time to get it into all the little cracks and all the little holes and pits. And what this will do is give the tree a relatively unnatural looking white colour. But what will happen is, as it begins to dull down over a period of time out exposed to the elements, we'll get a much more natural looking colour, which will be suitable for a deciduous tree. Subsequently, preserving the dead wood, I would do that once a year in the summer when the wood's nice and dry, and I'd use the natural dead wood preserver that you can find for sale on our website. If you'd like to know more about preserving dead wood, there's quite an extensive article listed on our website that you can take a look at, and it'll cover all the different products that you can use, what they're suitable for, what types of wood, what's the best time of year to do this work, and so on and so forth.